Hi everyone! If you watched the introductory video of this series, you will know that I'm going to talk about each of the 5 subsections of the Russian language exam TRKI at C1 level. This is the video about the listening test. Listening is probably the test that I was most worried about, and it's also the test that I got the lowest scores in, but enough to pass. And it's probably the test that is least susceptible to kind of gaming and preparation. And really the best way to prepare for it is to expose yourselves to authentic material like listening to the radio, podcast, TV, and so on. But I think it is still helpful to know beforehand what kinds of questions you're going to get. In the exam, you're probably going to be given time to read through the questions. So in my exam center, we got 5 minutes in the beginning to just read through all the questions. And obviously, do use this time well. It's always good to know what they're going to ask and be constantly looking out for the information as you hear the recordings. And you might also get some time between the recordings to go through the questions again. So do use that time wisely. In the listening test, you also get 4 sections like in the reading test. And basically each block corresponds to 1 audio material, and it can be a video as well. So I'm going to talk about that later. In the first audio, it's going to be a really short recording, so lasting no more than 30 seconds. And it could be almost a monologue or a kind of dialogue. And it's usually about someone giving their opinion about something. And it's also usually in a colloquial register, so you're more likely to encounter slang, although that's not always the case, judging from the sample tests that I have done. So one of the challenges in this section is that the audio is so short that you might find yourself sort of wondering what happened and the video is over. So there is not much time to kind of find your bearings. But the good thing is, in the 4 questions that you get asked in this section, 2 of them don't really require you to understand much of the audio. So one question will be about the tone of voice of the person speaking. So it could be whether that speaker is angry or annoyed or delighted or disappointed and so on. And you can often tell that without understanding words of what's been said, so it's just the tone of voice. Obviously, you need to know the Russian terms for the different emotions, so if you don't know those words well, I would advise you to go look up a list somewhere. So that's one question. And the second question, there's always a question about the kind of register or the language used by the speaker. So is it a colloquial register, or does it reflect a more kind of formal speech, educated speech? And this you can also tell by just kind of catching words here and there, even if you don't understand what's going on in general. So another thing that you can prepare for is to look up how Russian divides up the different registers. And in particular, I found it helpful to know the difference between просторечие and разговорный стиль. I found it confusing to begin with because both of those terms kind of relate to less formal registers, but the key difference between them is that разговорный стиль is spoken language that still follows the norms of the language, whereas просторечие is kind of uses more non-standard forms. So if you hear kind of slang words that sound strange to you, it's probably просторечие. In the second block of questions, you're going to watch an extract from a film, usually about 5 minutes long. And because it's a film, it's likely to be in the colloquial register. So again, you need to kind of be used to less formal language. Another challenge with watching a film is that you need to work out the relationships between the characters quite quickly. And the questions will ask you sort of what did Piotr do? So you need to know who Piotr is, for example. And I will admit that I did kind of go on YouTube and try to watch lots of old Soviet films in the hopes that one of those will turn up in the actual exam, which it didn't. But I think it's a good idea to also kind of get used to the style of Russian films. What I do advise you to do is to observe the body language of the characters as well, because there is always 1 or 2 questions about how the characters are feeling. So you can often tell that even from body language, and that will help you at least get a few questions right, even if you may not follow everything that's going on in the extract. The third and fourth block of the listening test is kind of the more standard types of tasks that you would expect from a language exam. So in the third block, you're going to listen to someone explain a topic that's usually of a social or scientific nature, and you just answer questions about what the person has said. So that's pretty straightforward. And in the fourth audio, you're going to listen to an interview between an artist, so usually director or an actor, and the interviewer, and it's usually a video. So again, my advice is that you should observe the body language as well, because there's going to be a question about what kind of person the artist is. So is he a passionate person, or is he a bit shy or evasive? So it's good to pay attention to that aspect as well. And also there is a question about the relationship between the interviewer and the interviewee. So do pay attention to that as well. This is it for the listening test. If you've got any questions about this subsection, please do let me know in the comments, and I will try to answer them as best I can. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.